I'd almost argue one of the points there about squats being like an amazing leg builder overall. They're not. For example, the squats are pretty crap for your hamstrings, and if anyone pipes up and says otherwise, as somebody with a very small bottom because I neglect to train it properly, I'm going to tell you exactly what you should do to grow your bottom, which is everything I don't do. And Lift with Sarah, a new name, is actually going to help us with this. Rounder glutes, 5 mistakes keep your butt flat. Many of you watching this video may not be subscribed to the channel. Absolutely fine. I don't blame you. To be honest, I wouldn't subscribe to me. I've got quite a large forehead and I waffle about having a small bum all the time. But tickle me this. If throughout this video at any point you actually learn something from this video, I would very much appreciate it if you were to click the red button down below to subscribe to the channel. So maybe that's a little sneaky deal we could enter into. We can shake on it and all make it official.
So you're super dedicated in the gym. You hit every single exercise with perfect form and you go as hard as your body can physically go every single time. And yet your glutes are still as flat as a pancake. Why? Because you're not eating enough.
There is a difference between contractile tissue and essentially fat tissue, which is non-contractile. Contractile essentially refers to tissue that can contract. Muscle, for example, muscle is contractile tissue. Fat, you cannot contract, therefore it won't be contractile tissue. Typically, a lot of people hold a lot of fat in their glutes, which is why they may often have that appearance of a larger bottom, but until they diet down, get a lot leaner, and suddenly it's like their glutes have shrunk massively. Because again, they're getting rid of the non-contractile tissue and highlighting how much contractile tissue they have, which might not be as much as you would like. But then how do you gain more contractile tissue? Great question. I'm actually glad you asked, because that's kind of the point of the video. Eating enough is kind of one of the big things. Although we don't need to be in a calorie surplus to gain muscle, it will make things a lot easier. Building muscle is essentially signal driven. So to really build muscle, you want to progressively overload, which is something we'll cover shortly. You don't need to be in a calorie surplus to do that. Doing so will allow you additional energy, an excess of energy, to allow you to better use that energy to help your performance in the gym, thus potentially allowing you to progressively overload more efficiently, more often, all that good stuff, thus potentially contributing to you building more muscle. So two things to really consider when you look at the nutrition side of things when building muscle: calorie surplus, so eating more calories than you expend, and protein. Typically, I would say roughly for a lot of people, not necessarily everyone, let's start with like a gram per pound of body weight, so 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. Calorie surplus, find out what your maintenance is, add 200 calories to that, and just see what happens.
So you've spent the past few months absolutely perfecting your squat form. You're getting stronger every session, you're hitting crazy depth every single rep, and yet your glutes still aren't growing. Why, you may ask? Well, it's because you're doing the wrong exercise. Don't get me wrong, squats are a great movement when you're trying to grow your legs overall. But when we're trying to grow our glutes, not all exercises are created equal.
I'd almost argue one of the points there about squats being like an amazing leg builder overall. They're not. Don't get me wrong, love squats, fantastic. I'm a big fan of including a squat pattern in your workout. For example, the squats are pretty crap for your hamstrings, and if anyone pipes up and says otherwise, think about it. When you are squatting into the hole, your hamstrings are lengthening at one side and shortening at the other. Therefore, their respective length does not actually change. Therefore, they're not actually doing a lot. The primary function of the hamstring is going to be knee flexion, so essentially bending the knee. When you're exerting force in a squat, the primary movement there is knee extension, which is the polar opposite to knee flexion, which is why the quads are going to be more involved. This kind of argument of wrong exercise is actually probably pretty valid. You've got to ask yourself how much of your glute workout consists of just doing endless amounts of kickbacks, maybe a unilateral glute bridge, and maybe some squats. You probably need a bit more than that. Hinge patterns, like Sarah kind of mentioned, where she goes on to the RDL later on, fantastic, because you're lengthening the glutes against resistance. Love that. And again, it's also going to target the hamstrings as well. There are squat variations you can include. You've got split squat variations as well, unilateral leg press variations, which basically do the same thing as a split squat. You've got the glute bridge, hip thrust, back extension. Again, there are so many fantastic movements you can do to help target the glutes. Just sticking on squats and kickbacks isn't enough. Don't get me wrong, time and a place, like glute med kickbacks, fantastic, but if it were kind of down to me, I'd probably prioritize a hip thrust variation, an RDL variations, or a hinge pattern, probably a glute med kickback to then target the glute med, which is a muscle of the glutes commonly neglected. I'd probably look at a unilateral based movement like a unilateral leg press, split squats, and to us, those or variations of those movements are probably going to be up there as some of my top tier glute movements to choose from. This week is the last week to enter the TFNL raffle, so if you want a chance to win either 2 months free coaching online with me, a free program written by me for your goals, or even just get your order of a workout guide refunded from the TFNL website, all you have to do is go to tfnl.uk, buy one of the workout guides, and automatically you get entered into the raffle where the winners will be chosen next month. I'll throw it out there now. If you use code WAFFLE, you're going to get 15% off. If you're on the mailing list, you would have already seen that from a couple of weeks ago, but because the end is nigh, I'm going to give you that chance now. So code WAFFLE for for 15% off of any of the guides on tfnl.uk, and then you get thrown into the raffle.
Okay, so you've been working out for a few months. You've been hitting those glute exercises with sweat, tears, dedication, and really been giving it your all. But now your progress has plateaued. Your butt hasn't been getting any bigger and you're feeling stuck and frustrated. This happens because your muscles adapt to the stress that you're putting on them.
Again, I do think if your primary goal is building muscle, progressive overload is going to be the fundamental principle you need to consider. And the progressive overload can kind of look like two primary things. Is when you go to the gym, do more weight for the same number of reps, or more reps with the same weight. You're doing something which is maintaining that mechanical tension, which is going to be that big driver of hypertrophy. And hypertrophy obviously refers to the building of muscle. When you go to the gym, let's say you go to a commercial gym and you see people lifting with horrendous technique, really bad, but they're training really hard, just really bad technique, but they've got a lot of muscle. That kind of indicates the importance of actually hard work, training hard, lifting more if you can, and building from that. Again, it really is about intensity as a primary factor. When you go to the gym, you should be training to, if not close to, failure. And whenever you think you're at failure, you're probably a lot further away than you actually think. Because our mind will often give up for our body. Are we trying to grow our mind in the gym, or are we trying to grow some big juicy glutes? When you're going to the gym, whatever you do it properly. So train hard, and also just try and do more every week if you can. No, you probably won't be able to progressively overload every week. That's not realistic, but you can certainly try your best. And that will come down to lifting more weight or doing more reps. Doing more sets, shorter rest periods, things like that are not forms of progressive overload. Weight and reps.
Once you set yourself the goal of growing your glutes, I feel like it's really easy to slip into the habit of hitting them every single day with the hopes of speeding up your growth. However, doing a glute workout every single day is probably doing you more harm than it is good, and is probably one of the main reasons why you're not seeing any growth.
Really valid points, and to be honest, this video has actually been a pleasant surprise. What I will say is everyone has this idea that is to grow a muscle, they'll say, oh, we'll train it more often. If weekly volume is equated, frequency is irrelevant. If you do 6 sets of glutes every Monday, or you do 3 sets on a Monday, 3 sets on a Thursday, you are still accumulating the same number of sets per week, which is going to be 6. Therefore, the hypertrophy stimulus and the results will be comparable, because again, it's weekly volume, not daily volume. Sure, increasing your frequency could allow you to potentially increase your weekly volume, but there is only so much volume we will benefit from. Do you need to increase your weekly volume beyond that maximum threshold of volume? If you really want to kind of enhance your glute development, make sure you're obviously doing enough volume. I typically say, depends on the person, it could be anywhere from 4 to 10 sets per week, we'll say. You're training hard enough, and also you're prioritizing. What's going to benefit your glute growth more than training frequency is actually going to be exercise priority. If you're doing glutes last in your workout, you're fatigued, you're shattered, you're battered, therefore effort, stimulus going to be lower. If you do your glutes first in your workout, you're fresh, stimulus is going to be higher, fatigue's lower, you can put more into it, and again, you are shifting that priority from other muscles to the glutes, and the glutes are your priority. You should be training them earlier in the workout, arguably first. I'm not saying you do all your glute work earlier on, although you can. Prioritizing your glute dominant movements first versus last, you're probably going to see better results doing them first.
When I first started my fitness journey, the first thing I did was follow a bunch of big booty influencers online, and then of course started comparing what my body looked like to theirs. And while I think it's really inspiring to follow these people and see other people achieve their own fitness goals, I think it's also really important to remember that every single body is different.
I mean, fundamentally, comparison, they claim, is indeed the thief of joy. Social comparison theory is something I bring up often, but it's actually very relevant here, which is essentially you're looking at upward social comparisons here, where you're comparing yourself to somebody you perceive to be better than you. They've got a bigger bum than you, they're better than you in some other capacity, and inherently, all that's going to do is batter your self-esteem. Trust me, I kind of did a master's on this. If you find motivation from doing so, fully support it. If you come away from Instagram looking at these influencers with massive bottoms, feeling bad about yourself, then you've got to ask yourself, are you really motivating yourself, or are you actually harming your mental health in this process? Again, what someone else is achieving is irrelevant to what you can achieve. No two bodies are the same. Someone else might genetically have a greater capacity for building muscle than you, but also somebody else might have a lesser capacity to building muscle than you. So again, it really does depend. You can only do the best that you can do. And all I'd say upon that is nail as many variables as possible, stay consistent with them. Therefore, you're then putting yourself in the position to achieve the best results you can achieve, which could be bloody fantastic. It really comes down to eating enough calories and protein, training hard enough, making sure you're doing more every week if you can through progressive overload, exercise sequencing, prioritizing glute exercises earlier on in the workout, and then just trying to nail all of those variables as consistently as you can. And then also realizing it's probably going to take you a lot longer than you think. Maintaining muscle, relatively easy. Building muscle is a whole nother ballgame. It will take time. The people who are going to see the best results are the people who will stick at it for years and years and years. It might not take as long as you thought it would, because again, it depends on you, where you are, your goals, etc. But it also might take a lot longer than expected. And that's where a lot of people fall short. I haven't come across Sarah before. Very pleasantly surprised. Again, I can only base my opinion off this video alone. Good source. Big fan. I respect it and I appreciate it. But that's it. That's the video. And like I said at the beginning of the video, if you did learn anything throughout this video, I would very much appreciate it if you did click the red button down below to subscribe to the channel. But if you didn't learn something from this video, you can dislike it and just send me an abusive message on Instagram if you want. I wouldn't blame you. Thank you for tolerating me. Thank you for tolerating my undersized bottom and oversized forehead. And thank you for tolerating the video.